Good morning. I hope you've enjoyed, Kevin's talk was very inspirational, and Kevin had an example that I think we can use and talk about a little bit here, is in service models. That experience he talked about where someone's driving, they're driving him to the airport, but they're having a conversation with AI, and they didn't feel like AI. Is that going to be normal? And the answer is probably yes, but probably better. And these are examples of service models that AI is going to impact. And I'm going to ask my friend Akshay first. We're talking about a lot of, there's enough service models to go around, right? And we're going to Gen AI them. We're going to get some benefit out of it. But the future doesn't stop with what we know today.
Yes.
Do you see with the advent of AGI, artificial general intelligence, that now these service models become more smarter? They can change to meet the business versus having to wait for the business to change them. What do you think about that, Akshay?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jim. So I think before I get to 25 years ahead, I think if you go back 25 years, most of us have experienced, actually this year, this quarter is really when Y2K was all in boom. Past 25 years, many of the executives in this room have really made the career, the growth and everything based on this model of labor arbitrage, delivering value and all of the waves that we saw Kevin talk about. But I think this is that pivotal moment also, and of course, everybody's been listening and talking about Gen AI, but it is really the moment where we're really, and again, if you speak to any of the Gen AI, AGI, super intelligence experts, we're really still scratching the surface.
Yeah.
So I think clients are already experimenting. We've done a lot of research, a lot of talking to customers, where they started about 2 years ago on looking at productivity and efficiency use cases. They're already all doing revenue enhancing, revenue impacting use cases. So as this becomes smarter and smarter, as compute becomes cheaper and cheaper, energy becomes cheaper and cheaper, that's just an inevitability, right? So next 25 years, not many of us will be working 25 years from now, but that moment is just going to be very, very different. I think there will be these self-learning systems which adapt to changing processes and so on. But I think in the short to medium term, in the next year to 3 years to 5 years, the entire service delivery model is going to start changing, which means that the deal structuring, the deal solutioning, all of that starts to change. It may start with a certain pricing model in year 1, but it will evolve to a certain different pricing model in year 3 and then year 5 and so on and so forth. And that agility in the service delivery model, the pricing, the solutioning, I think that's the challenge for all of us in the room. And I think Nishant was talking about it. We better be proactive about it. We would rather disrupt our own business rather than somebody else coming in and disrupting, because somebody else is going to come in and do that.
What do you think is the leading service model to be changed right now, to adapt to Gen AI?
Sorry, what is needed?
What's the service model that you think is the most taking advantage of it today and will be the leader, if you will?
So, I think pretty much across all the different process areas, it's happening. It started more with software development, customer service. Kevin spoke about more of customer service use case. But I think the more you're aligned with the customer's business, how they make money, how they lose money, and how, if we're more aligned with that, that's what they're looking for. So I think that's, if I was, rather than prognosticating a particular model or a set of models, it's really, you have to be, in sync with how the client makes money, how the client's business gets impacted, and then you're going to be there for a long, long time.
Yeah, very good. And Dave, you want to contribute?
Yeah, to the sort of 3 to 5 year thought, most AI that's in place in enterprises now, it's human-led AI assisted, right? There are kind of 2 models, right? Human-led AI assisted, AI-led human assisted. Most of it right now, small productivity gains to help humans get a little faster at their job, right? And that's wonderful, and we're all happy about that. The real revolution comes in 3, 5, 10 years when we start going to AI-led, human assisted, because then you're talking about, instead of making one person 20% faster, you're talking about taking 10, 15, 20 people out of a job while the AI does it, and not necessarily in a bad way. But it changes that model a lot when that model flips.
Yeah. Speaking of that, where you help with the computer economics and been leading that for many years, and the data, where's the data telling us about IT spend in that regard? And because you got to start now. You can't. Carlos made a great point. We're not quite ready in every industry.
Yep.
But what's happening with the money?
Yeah, a few things. One, just as a sort of baseline, IT budgets are increasing at the median at a fairly healthy level, a little bit above inflation. So there's money out there to invest, even though the economy's been iffy here or there. People are wondering, layoffs and things. It's generally pretty strong. So to add to that, sort of we ask a question: what is the number one area where you're increasing budget in AI and data analytics tied at the top? 2/3 of the companies are increasing their budget in AI and data analytics. Not a surprise that the two are linked, right? You got to make your data AI ready. Every business is a data-driven business, so that's huge. The other major area that's really changing is we're seeing over the last 5 years or so, we've seen a real reshaping of the IT staff. So 5 years ago, about 25% of the IT staff was application developers. In those 5 years, it's dropped down to, I think it's 12% at the average now. That's a huge drop in 5 years. We've never seen that kind of drop in any one job category in such a short period of time. A lot of that's obviously AI driven, but it's not necessarily that app developers are losing their jobs. It's that the piece of the pie is changing. So there's a lot more project management, there's a lot more business analysts, there's a lot more folks who are doing the strategy side, which is important, right? Because they're starting to see IT as a revenue growing area instead of the cost center it used to be. It's much more strategic. So I think that's a good place to start.
Okay. So if I can just add, I think, so IT spends are rising. The spends on AI and data and analytics is rising. But who's making money? Right now, there's only one company making money, which is NVIDIA. So I think when you reallocate where the profit is going to be, nobody else is making profit. Only NVIDIA is making profit. So how do we position so that we can make profit from this wave in AI? Otherwise, we'll be all just, be kind of witness to it. Yeah. So I think that's, coming back to that service delivery model, the structuring, we have to get there so that we can make money off this wave that's coming, and not just, a couple of players making money on it.
If I can speak from a CIO or former CIO perspective, it sounds so easy. Go in and ask each functional area about their data, and you'll get an answer. Ask somebody to go across the data to get the value of across the data. You'll get no answer, or you'll get territorial answers. What we're talking about is the technology is going to lead, but you've got to have some understanding of your data, and you got to have some understanding of what you want out of the data.
Yeah, and that's why the IT staffing role is changing. Yeah. So the mix is changing so much to folks who, soft skills, people who don't touch something, not only because you folks help them with that, but because that's the necessary thought is how can we connect the dots? How can IT, because it's the one thing that touches all the departments, how can the technology side connect the dots across so that it makes sense rather than a series of siloed AI efforts that maybe add 15% productivity here, but that's not transformational. That's just, additive.
Yeah. One thing to remember, and I do have, unfortunately, a lot of experience to a certain degree, that when we automate something, automation is a word that we used to use, now we call it generate something. And it always changed how we work. It always changed expectations, and the expectations were always greater than the delivery. And the only answer I have different than that was putting things on Mars, but we won't go there. The idea that people in IT have all the answers is where they need the help. And this is where you guys come in. And Akshay, this is where the impact of consulting, I think, is going to be huge.
It's huge. So, I mean, even for our own business, I mean, clients are obviously getting smarter and smarter. They want more. So that's where we've been investing in our own business. How do we keep raising the bar higher and higher? Because some of the basic work, their own teams, the younger workforce that's coming in, they are born with some of these platforms and tools. So we've been early investor in our own business. About 18, 24 months ago, we started looking at it, investing in it. We built out our own Copilot, I think, as Kevin spoke about it. We've rolled out, the Microsoft Copilot, which Shael has been driving for all of our consultants, so that they have these new tools at their disposal. But just on the research side, for example, we purpose-built this Copilot on OpenAI, and that's available on Microsoft Teams. That's available to all our subscribers, and it just changes the game on how you consume research. Yeah. I mean, historically, you've consumed research going one PDF by one PDF or some spreadsheet database or whatnot. I have repository of 25 years. Now, all of that is behind this custom trained Copilot. And now, even us, our analysts are able to now say, well, we said this in this report, and then 2 years ago in this particular report we said this, and by the way, on an unrelated topic, this is. So it's all bringing it together. Yeah. That was not possible, 2 years ago. Right. And that's the kind of impact it's going to have on consulting. That's happening on research, and it's just going to continue and continue. So we've taken that kind of we've read the tea leaves on it. We are making that change ourselves, and there's no other way but to just start empowering the employees more and more and give them all the tools and platforms.
Will this lead to new jobs, new titles?
For sure.
Some disruption in the way consulting works besides?
I don't have a very pessimistic view on it. I mean, there will be displacement of jobs for sure. And that has always happened. I mean, I think if you go back 1,000 years, we have far more jobs now than we had 100 years ago, 500 years ago, right? So there's more people, there's more jobs. We will always find more things to do. But what they do today is going to change. I think Dave was alluding to some of it. The roles themselves are going to change. Just in the field of AI, I think several new roles have emerged, and they will continue to evolve.
Yeah, and we actually did we surveyed as part of our data, is Gen AI going to lead to more jobs or fewer? 92% of the people we surveyed said it would lead to more jobs. I've never seen that kind of response to any question. You can't get 90% of people to agree on much of anything. So you can't get them to agree the sun's going to rise tomorrow. So that's a sign. I think people are optimistic about AI, at least within the end user community and the tech community. I think there's a little anxiety, say, for folks who watch Terminator or whatever. But our group, our people understand that the value that adds.
Yeah, I think, again, from a perspective of being on that side of things, the expectations, again, are set, but the reality is you've got to be envisioned with the C-suite of what they want, but then you've got to give them what they want, but you've got to have a process to get them there. There's a lot of openings in the CIO roles. If you've watched that lately, I'm seeing it. I deal with a lot of CIOs. There's a lot of transition going on. Part of it may be not adopting strategies around AI and what's needed, what the expectations from the C-suite are. And we're seeing that quite a bit, certainly in the SoCal area, and I bet you're seeing that too across your industries. So what is, we talked about data a little bit, but Avasant has all this data. We took 17 years of data. Is that right? We took
35.
35 years. I can't remember that far back.
Yeah, neither.
Well, the first 10 were like in printed volumes. So.
They are, yes. They're in the office. It's beautiful. They're actual bound books.
I remember those. And, is there value in relooking at that data?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The chart that Kevin showed that goes back to, I think, 2008, I forget the exact date, I put that together for a talk at the ITFMA, but we've been charting that for a few years. I made a prediction of what year the lines would cross. It was next year. It'll be off by a year or two. But nonetheless, just that value of seeing personnel spending dropping without reduction in staff and application spending going up, that alone was eye-opening to me. But there's more to it than that, because we know the hype cycles repeat. We know the value. So Copilot's really helped us. I couldn't have put that chart together as fast without Copilot too. It's great. I'd have had to blow dust off old Excel sheets to find it otherwise.
Well, I've got to, Shael, I have to ask you this question about the Copilot implementations. You're looking at corporate strategy for Avasant. You're looking at, how to meet Kevin's vision. And what is your experience in implementing something like that? Because all of us have to learn. What was your experience in doing that and leading that effort?
Yeah, well, organizational change it was not insignificant, but we knew that we had to be leaders in this space. And many of you might be aware of digital singularity. This was published about 8 years ago. So for almost close to a decade, we've been talking about this whole where technology converges with the human experience and what that's going to create. And Gen AI is accelerating us to this new reality. So as soon as it became available, we immediately got it for all our employees. We immediately rolled it out. As Akshay mentioned, across our consulting, across our research, even within our internal platforms from knowledge management, we've embedded it into everything that we're doing, both internally and externally. Now our consultants, research analysts, they can just get that quick access to data to help them accelerate, their work, their insights. And so it's been good.
Yeah. And the expectations have been that we have the tools to do the job. We have the data where we can get to the tools and use them.
And if I can add to that, I think, so obviously a huge effort in terms of, because consultants are the hardest people to drive change to, right? They think they know everything. So for them to move any platform, consultants, I mean, and this has been also part of my role last 4 or 5 years. The only 3 platforms that consultants use are PowerPoint, spreadsheets, Word documents. They can change the world with those 3. How do you ingest Copilot into it, right? And how do you drive change, and how do you get them to unlearn, relearn, and all of that? It's pretty hard.
One of the fun things that we did at the very start for our consultants, we created these work groups and these workshops, and we gave them some problem scenarios where one group got to use Gen AI and Copilot in their solution, and the other group did not. So you can imagine what the results would have been like. It would have been much richer data, it would have been more meaningful. I mean, the templates and everything was covered, but what came out of the Gen AI groups were a lot better. So that was first-hand experience that they saw very early on to help us drive that.
And what we did was we 10x'd everybody's target. So for example, in research, your throughput has to be 10x, both in terms of quality and quantity. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just another tool which is just gathering dust and it's not getting utilized. So that really forces them to think out of the box and do things differently. So to your point on how do I completely change the process of what it's doing today? Because Gen AI is truly one of those. It's not an incremental add-on, but it's a truly disruptive, thing. And if I can share one more example on, even how clients are using it, right? And how the business of consulting for clients is changing. Kevin spoke about CEPI, and if you think of that process, they take 18 to 21 months to do a certain call for proposal process, evaluation, disbursement of the grant, and so on and so forth. If they would have looked at that process 5 years ago, 3 years ago, a consultant would have come in and done a process reengineering exercise for who knows what, 3 months, 6 months, right? No client has patience for that anymore. Right. Their employees don't have patience. The executive leadership doesn't have patience for that, because in that 5 to 6 months, they can actually get to tangible results. And that's how they're changing, and that's how we were able to work with that particular client on really making that impact, rather than taking them on a long drawn BPR exercise and so on and so forth, but then how technology can really drive very, very quickly, and then their users are able to see the results in a matter of 3 to 4 months.
You know, there's, as Dave indicated earlier, you know, it's hard to justify IT expenditures sometimes when you're, you know, if you're in a hotel like this, they will want to modify the hotel, not spend the money on IT necessarily. But you can't do some of the things we're talking about without that infrastructure, core infrastructure. We all live by network. If you live in Southern California, we had an earthquake not too long ago, and the last thing I was thinking about was Gen AI, except where do I run? And I wasn't going to bring my Gen AI with me. But I can tell you that data got to me faster than it ever did before. You know, the earthquake apps now can notify you you're about to die. And so it's good to know. On the other hand, what do you do about it? Well, it can't tell you that except, you know, cover, duck, roll, whatever you have got to do. We're going to see much more of that. But how do we trust what we see? What is it that makes us trust that? And how do we put that in our mindset about trust? You know, and believe what we're seeing. In this world of, especially today, where we hear all kinds of different things, fake news, you know, data being corrupted, things of that nature, is AI going to fix itself?
It has to. I mean, we're in real trouble if it doesn't. AI ultimately has to be an arbiter of truth. Yeah. And I know we talk about hallucination, we talk about a lot of things. Frankly, a lot of those problems we're already starting to solve. If not solve the hallucination, at least we're putting citations, we're doing things we can check. Humans have to be trained to follow this. But it has to become an arbiter of truth, and it has to work faster, or it's not going to work. But one of the things I think makes that possible, by the way, is a lot of times we talk about AI as one monolithic thing, but it's really not. It's a series of models, a lot of them, right? And not even just talking about competition, but it's and so one of the things you want to do is use more than one model, verify them against each other. Look at the way you're asking the questions. Look at the answers that are coming back. Where did they come from? There's a lot of things you can do to help it work out. Just like if you were talking about fake news, just like, hey, if you watch Fox, maybe you watch a little MSNBC, watch a little CNN. The more data you look at, the broader your sources are, the more likely you're going to find the truth in there somewhere.
First of all, you still have to apply the human element of judgment. And that's, I think, still going to be a very important part of this is when do you make good? We have always had to use that, judgment. So I would say that part has not been automated just yet. So we'll see that coming. But I want to talk about something Kevin touched upon and what we've touched upon a little bit on the consulting side is relationships still matter. Just the relationships may change. And I can tell you as a CIO, I wanted whoever was working with me to be a partner, not be a supplier. And if you're a partner with me, we can share data differently. We can share information that we may not always share with a supplier. And that relationship meant that I know the business is going to change, so whatever we put on an agreement is not going to be current in 3 or 6 months. So don't come to me with a purchase order. Come to me with an answer. And that's very hard for a lot of people to understand because it's not the model that you're used to. So if the model changes, and maybe there's more automation involved with that, more Gen AI involved with that, and we get better answers, nothing wrong with better answers faster. They don't have to be studied so much. So that's the experience I had. Any final last, I know we're out of time. Any final last words?
Just on that, got me thinking, Jim. So I think in any period of rapid change, to your point of relationships, I think that's the fundamental thing because that's going to give you the comfort and confidence to power through that change, right? And I think going back again to Kevin's point, Nishant's point, that's where your existing relationships really matter. You think you can drive into a new account where they don't have the history, the trust and everything, and help them with this change, it's going to be harder. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's going to be harder than actually going and working and reimagining the relationships that you already have, where you have the trust, the confidence, and the comfort.
Any final words?
Akshay, I think, summed up really well, but I would just say, the one thing I'd say, I just said before, stop thinking of AI as a thing, as a one thing. Start thinking about it as a tool to get things done, and a series of tools, a lot of tools. Everybody needs them, everybody wants them, but you got to pick the right one for the right job, and don't be afraid of it. I guess that's a good way to end.
Let it be your partner, not your supplier.
Yeah, your partner. Let AI be your partner. Yeah.
So thank you. Please reach out. We'll be around to ask questions, and we're happy to share more information with you. Avasant is empowered by its research that empowered all of us to be able to talk about what we're talking today, plus our experiences. So thank you very much.
Thank you.